Hi, good morning. Welcome to Kolel Ahavat Israel. Today we have our special weekly class with partners in Torah. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you to Mr. and Mrs. Selwyn Isako. Be'ezat Hashem, Partners in Torah is a Baruch Hashem organization that reaches over 1,500 cities around the world. So we want to say thank you to Partners in Torah for doing this for the past, we've been with them for 4 years, but they've been doing it for 5 years. And it's really truly an honor to be part of this amazing organization. We also want to say a special prayer to a gentleman, Be'ezat Hashem, the Shichrur, so he'll be freed. Be'ezat Hashem, his name is Ro'im Moshe. Erez, Be'ezat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will free him. And we want to say also Refuah Shlema to our sponsor, Baruch Chai Ben Chaya Miriam, and his wife, Zehavit Batova. We want to say Refuah Shlema to Yonatan and Sarah Harush, Baruch Hashem. Also Refuah Shlema to Dani Almog. And thank you to his sponsorship, needforbill.com. We want to thank and Refuah Shlema to Rachamim and Avivi Janach. Be'ezat Hashem, we want to say Refuah Shlema to Simcha Meir Avraham Ben Nacha. And of course to Flori Bat Rachel, also Chaim Ben Ramon, Moshe Ben Marcel, Yosef Ben Esther, Shulamit Bat Tzipora, Karen Bat Aliza, Yaakov Ben Genia, ובעזרת השם, יחד לכל חולי עמך ישראל, אין לרפנה להם, אין לרפנה להם, אין לרפנה להם. We also want to say, בעזרת השם, לעילוי נשמת אבי מורי ניסים בן פרחיה, אמי מורתי רחל בת רוחמה, אחי מאיר אברהם ויעקב. We also want to say thank you to the Maman family from Florida for helping us. And we want to say thank you to all of you for being with us. Please help us share this new YouTube channels that we have. Again, it's on our website, neshatorah.org. You can see the website. We have, Baruch Hashem, 7 rabbis. We spread Torah all over the world in Hebrew, in English, in Spanish. And would love for you guys to help us get more subscribers so we can do better. And Baruch Hashem, with Facebook, we reach over 48,000 people. And our new channel just reached over 1,000. Baruch Hashem, we thank you so much for all you do. And Parashat VA'YEISHLACH. So this parasha, Baruch Hashem, is now the 8th parasha of the Torah. And Yaakov Avinu is 99 years old. And he's leaving the house of Lavan, as we know, and is coming towards back to the land of Israel. Altogether, Yaakov Avinu was 36 years outside of the land of Israel. By the way, this is the gematria of Leah. That's the first Bechorah that he married. And of course, we know that Yaakov now is leaving one wicked man, Lavan, and is going towards another wicked man, Esav. Esav, his twin brother. But Yaakov does something. Yaakov sends angels. You know, the Torah tells us that Yaakov met angels in the last parasha, as we know, in Parashat VA'YEISHLACH. At the end, Yaakov met a few angels. Some say it was 2, some say 3, some says it was 400, some say it was 613. Because, you know, Yaakov basically had angels that escorted him from the land of Israel and outside of the land of Israel. And Yaakov sends angels to his brother, but it says to Esav, his brother. So the Torah says that when Yaakov Avinu was leaving the house of Lavan, the Zohar says that Lavan was so wicked. He was one of the most wicked magicians in the world. And he was so terrifying that he sent his own son, Beor. We know Beor, by the way, he was the father of Bilam. And Lavan sent Beor to Esav and telling him, listen, Yaakov is living in my house. He's very, very rich. He has a lot of stuff, a lot of cattle, a lot of slaves and servants and money. God blessed him with a lot. And I know that he stole the blessings from you. So I telling you, wait for him, and you can then take everything from him. Beor, by the way, as we mentioned, was the father of Bilam. Bilam was also a magician. By the way, Bilam will be mentioned in the Parashat Balak, but is the grandson of Lavan that was sent to Egypt to try to kill Yaakov and the people of Israel. As we know in the Agadah of Pesach, we say, Arami oved aviv vayered Mitzrayma. Arami, Lavan's grandson, came down to Egypt to destroy Yaakov. And of course he failed. But now Yaakov is heading out, and he basically sending angels to Esav, Achiv. Now Yaakov, as we know, he was very, very terrified because Yaakov lost faith in a sense. The word Vayishlach, to send, has also Hashem Shalach, meaning that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent, but it's also Yaakov Chalash. Yaakov is weak in his faith. So the Torah here writes that he sends to Esav, his brother. Sometimes the Torah mentioned his brother Esav. Yaakov Avinu here basically understand that Esav wants to kill him. And he does something, as we said, in a peaceful way. He sends angels to tell Esav, I want you to know I'm coming towards you, and I lived with Lavan, and I was late until now. The Torah says, Kotomar, that says, but Yaakov says to the angel, Kotomrun la Adoni Esav, to my master Esav. Yaakov used the word master 8 times in the next few verses when he is heading towards Esav. The Zohar says that because Yaakov used this word master for 8 times, 8 kings of the Edomites will rule over Israel in the future. So we have to be very careful with everything we say. And especially when a tzaddik says something, it always happens. We know Yaakov, didn't know who stole the statues of Lavan, those idol worshipping, and he says, whoever took them will die. He didn't know. It will end up being Rachel. Very careful. Yaakov Avinu now is telling them, tell Lavan, Ko amar avdecha, I'm your servant, which is, again, another bad thing for Yaakov to say. But he says, Im Lavan garti v'achar adata. I lived with Lavan and I was late until now. In essence, what Yaakov was saying to Esav, he says, listen, I managed to live with the most wicked person in the world for 20 years. And I'm running late in a sense that only after 20 years, when I had a son named Yosef, I can leave. Because Yosef, the prophecy said that he's the only one that can defeat Esav. But he says to him, listen, I lived with Lavan and I survived and I flourished and I kept the entire mitzvot of the Torah. Garti, the word Garti means I live, but it's also in Gematria is 613. The Hainu Taryag mitzvot. He says, I kept all the mitzvot. And I managed to do that while being with the most wicked person. So, of course, we understand that technically it's impossible to keep all the mitzvot where you are not in the land of Israel. And when you don't have a Mishkan, a temple, Beit HaMikdash, there is no mitzvot you could do outside of the land of Israel, like, Shemitah, Bikurim, bring in the offering, to do the sabbatical, to do all kinds of mitzvot with Kehuna, with the Kohanim, with the high priest, with the Levites. So what does it mean that I kept all the mitzvot? So we understand that the Rabbi Chaim Atar, Or HaChaim HaKadosh, says something amazing. He says, when you learn about the mitzvot, is if you've done the actual thing. That's what we come when he said, "Hu neshalma parim sfatenu," who shall pay the sacrifice by our mouth, by our lips, by learning about him as if you've done it. And we know when you learn, it says, "Limut Torah keneget kulam." When you learn something, it's against the entire Torah. Or also, when you put a tzitzit on, a tzitzit katan on your body, the tzitzit katan is like doing all the Torah in a sense, because the word tzitzit is 600 in numerical code, and the 8 ptilim, the 8 fringes, and the 5 ties, it's 613 altogether. So it's if like you've done all the 613 mitzvot. And Yaakov says to him, listen, I lived with him, I managed to kept my Torah, I never became or assimilated into him, and of course the method of Lavan. And I know that you, Esav, are terrified of Lavan. What does it mean? So the Zohar Kadosh brings something amazing. Lavan was a magician. And he was a very, very powerful idol worshiper that knew how to take trafim. The word trafim meaning like a statue, head of a statue, so to speak, that speaks to you live. Lavan used to take the firstborn redheads, gingy as we say in Hebrew, the firstborn boys, redhead, and he used to cut their heads, and he used to do magic, and this head will speak to him, will reveal to him a lot of things. That's why Esav never really chased Yaakov to Lavan to destroy. He was afraid of Lavan. He was a redhead, and he thought he was the Bechor. Yaakov says, with all that, I survived. In essence, he's giving a warning shot in a peaceful way to Esav. He says, remember, this is the worst guy that you're afraid of. I managed to defeat him. So don't have any bad ideas. Now Yaakov sends the angel, and he says, "Vayi li shor v'chamor tzon ve'eved v'shifcha." So, we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when everything is written in the Torah, it's really, in essence, a secret of what it is that the Torah means. It says that I have shor. What shor? An ox. He says, I have in my hand now Yosef. Yosef is what we call the ox. Yosef, we know he was blessed with being the shor, being the ox. Mashiach ben Yosef. I have with me Mashiach ben Yosef. And he says, and I have the donkey, which is Mashiach ben David. The Messiah will come on a donkey. And I have the tzon, I have the cattle, which is the people of Israel. But I also have Eved v'shivcha. I have a servant, female servant, and a male servant. The Zohar Kadosh bring, and also Rabbi Natan ben Uziel, it says something amazing. It says that even Satan and his wife went to fight Yaakov Avinu when he was with Lavan. Satan is Samael. Samael and his wife Lilith. It's very interesting in their name. Lilith and Samael is also combined 613. You have Samael is 131 and Lilith is 480. He says, I defeated them both. With my 613 angels of mitzvot, I was able to defeat those 2 angels. What Yaakov was saying to Esav is, we are ready to do the ultimate bringing of Mashiach together if you want, Esav. The Gemara will tell us a story that when Rivka went to complain about having a baby that's kicking all the time and wanted to get out into a shul or want to get out into idol worshiping, she says, what do I need this? Lama zeli. She didn't know she had twins. And the Zohar Kadosh says that those twins in the future represent the best of Israel and the best of Edomites, of Esav. What does it mean? So the Gemara says that the reincarnation of Yaakov will be Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the head of the Sanhedrin of Israel, Rabbi Yehuda the president, and it would be also the head of the Edomites, which will be a reincarnation of Esav, is the emperor, the Caesar named Antigonus. Antigonus and Rabbi Yehuda Nasi were best friends. They were learning Torah together. And at the end, Antigonus became a Bar Tshuva. He converted and went to the heavens. Was Yaakov was saying to Esav, we can do the same now. We can bring both Mashiach, we can bring the cattle, we can bring the servant and his wife, and we can bring the end of days today. But of course, Vayeshuvu Amalachim El Yaakov, they returned to him and they said to him, we came to your brother, El Esav, we came to your brother, but he's still Esav. He might be your brother, but he doesn't behave like your brother. He's behaving like a real Esav. The Gemara says, Esav soneh leYaakov. Esav will always hate Yaakov. And he says to him, the angel says to him, he's coming towards you with 400 warriors. Some said there were also angels of sabotage. Because, you know, whenever you make a mitzvah, you create an angel of what we call protection for you. Malachei sharet. And whenever you do an avera, you create an angel of sabotage. Esav sends 400 men ahead of him. Yaakov is now even more terrified because he realizes perhaps his father passed away. Because, you know, Esav says, I will kill Yaakov when our father will pass away. So he was terrified that he missed his father. His father probably passed away. And we know that Yaakov now is basically in a place whereby he's between two options, whether to go to war, killed, or be killed. And the Torah says, Vayera Yaakov me'od vayitzar lo. Yaakov was terrified. The word me'od, very terrified, was added. Vayitzar lo, and it was hard for him, meaning that he says, if I go fight with him, I'm terrified, but I'll be sorry if I kill him. And then he does something amazing. Yaakov splits his camp into two halves. And then he does something else. He starts putting together a gift for his brother. Yaakov says technically, you know, God forbid if he comes and he fights me, I'm going to split my people, my children, my wives, my maidservants, everything that I have into two camps. And that's really a strategy that we always should use. You know, you don't put everything in one basket, so to speak. We learned this from Yaakov Avinu. So we see here that Yaakov does the same thing. And then it says, if God forbid Esav destroy one camp, by the way, he kept the camps in two different locations, and the time difference between each location was 24 hours. Questions ask, why did he do that? Why Yaakov Avinu separated two camps within 24 hours? The answer to that, he knew the prophecy that his mother said. Rivka basically revealed to him the day that you'll die, both of you will die. Lama eshkol shne banim beyom echad. She said, why should I lose both children in one day? But in essence, she revealed to him that if, let's say, God forbid, he fights you, that's it. He will die within these 24 hours, or you'll die within these 24 hours. So Yaakov put the other half, 24 hours time behind the first camp. By the way, what Yaakov did, he took Leah and Rachel and put their 8 children together. We know Leah had 6 boys and 1 daughter, Dinah. And Rachel at that moment had 1 son, Yosef. And he put him in the back. And he took Zilpah and Bilhah, the 2 maidservants, his wife, by the way. By the way, Rachel and Leah were twins. And Zilpah and Bilhah were sisters. Essentially, they all are sisters, 4 sisters, 2 from one mother and 2 from another mother. And he took Zilpah and Bilhah and their 4 children and he put them in the first camp. And then he asked Hashem, he complains to Hashem, ויאמר יעקב אלוהי אבי אברהם ואלוהי אבי יצחק, אדוני אומר אלי שוב לארצך. He's basically saying to Hashem, you are the God of my father Abraham, you are the God of my father Yitzchak. We know that his father was not Abraham. Abraham was his grandfather. But from here we learn that when a person teaches you Torah, it's as if he was your father. And Abraham and Yitzchak and Yaakov studied Torah for 15 years together. And for every day while they were alive, 15 years together, they learned 15 hours a day. So he's considered him as his father too. In essence, he wanted to secure the blessing of Avraham Avinu, maybe in case he thought to himself that the blessing that I got from my father Yitzchak maybe would not hold because of Esav. And Yaakov says, you told me to come back to the land, and here I am in front of my brother that want to kill me. What's going on here, Hashem? And he says to him, Ki b'makli avarti et hayarden. I just passed the river, the Jordan River. When I left, as we know, Esav sent his son Eliphaz to kill Yaakov. And of course, Eliphaz did not listen. His mother told him, Ada, you will never succeed. Even your father couldn't, how would you? And Eliphaz, the Gemara said that he actually learned Torah both with Yaakov, Yitzchak, and Avraham. And Yaakov told him when, it was in front of the river of Jordan River, he says to him, listen, if I'll give you, because Yaakov left with a lot of fortune, he went to find a wife, Rachel. And just like Eliezer went to find Rivka, Yaakov took a lot of stuff with him. But Eliphaz came and wanted to kill him, and Yaakov says, listen, you can have all my fortune, and as a poor man, I consider as a dead man. And that's exactly what happened. He gave him everything. Eliphaz even took his clothes and everything, and he left him just with his staff. B'makli avarti tarden, just with the staff. The Zohar Kadosh bring that, of course, Yaakov Avinu, the Gemara says first, and also in the Midrash Tanhuma, that a horseman came to the river, and came to drink, and he fell and drowned, and Yaakov took his clothes and the horse. But this staff that he had, the Zohar says, is the same staff from Adam Arishon all the way to Moshe Rabbeinu. Is the staff that has the name of God, Shem Hashem HaMeforash, written on it. And Yaakov, when he was standing in front of the river, he tapped on the river banks, and the river stopped from flowing, and Yaakov could cross. Essentially, he secured the same opening of the Sea of Reeds by the same staff with Moshe. And in the future, the same staff will be used by Joshua to open the Jordan River and to pass. So we see that really, Yaakov says, I only pass with my staff, B'makli. B'makli is also 2 words, is Bam and Kli. Meaning, Bam, Yaakov says, I learned the entire Torah, both the written and oral Torah. Bam is the 2 letters that open the Torah, both oral and written. So the written one is Bereshit, right? That's the first letter of the Torah. And the Gemara is the oral Torah, Me'ematayin, Masechet Brachot. He says, I learned all of this. And I used my voice, Koli. Koli, as we know, Kol Kol Yaakov. The voice is the voice of Yaakov. The hands of Esav do not work on us. Kol, by the way, is a numerical code is 136, alluding to the voice of Yaakov. Kol, there's 3 elements that we can remove a decree, and they all have 136 in their value. Kol, meaning tefillah, the voice. Tzom, meaning to fast. And mammon, which is money to give tzedakah. And all 3 of them combined is 408, which is Zot. Zot, this is the Torah. Zot HaTorah, Asher Sam Moshe. In essence, you can do those 3 mitzvot, and that Torah will protect you. The tefillot, the blessings, the requests, the tzedakah, and fasting can remove a decree. And Yaakov says, I've done all this. And of course, Yaakov says, he's complaining. You know, the Torah says, Vayilan sham balayla hu. Yaakov was complaining all night. He says to Hashem, you promised me that you protect me and you bring me to the land and you'll do good with me. But then he says, really, katonti mikol hachataim. He says, I'm very little. Yaakov was saying to Hashem, basically, Hashem, I know you've done so much for me. Maybe there's no more rewards that's coming my way, or there's no more things you can do for me, because you've done so much. To be with Lavan for 20 years is nearly impossible. Yaakov, Hashem did so many miracles for him that at the end, Yaakov Avinu came out most wealthy out of the house of the biggest cheat in the world. Lavan is backward naval in Hebrew, mean very, very bad man. He cheated him 10,000 times. Not to mention switching the wives, not to mention switching the cattle, doing everything, all the time. Everything that Lavan promised, he was changing 10,000 times. Yet Yaakov managed to do all that and come out very wealthy. So he said, you've done so much for me. Maybe Hashem, there's no more you can do for me. But Yaakov is a very strong man. Remember, Yaakov, is the one that can remove the stone from the well, the water well. When he saw Rachel, it took 50 shepherds to remove the stone. And Yaakov does it by himself in such an ease. He was very tall, very strong. And he says, maybe I'll try a peaceful way. I know my brother. He likes a lot of food and gifts. That's what I sold him. I sold him food when he wanted to get rid of the blessings of the Torah, the Bechorah. He would sell his whole life just for a bowl of soup, of lentil. So Yaakov takes all these amazing gifts that he put together for Esav. And he takes basically, he says, I'm going to give him a certain amount of animals, cattle that's come from the kosher and cattle that's come not from the kosher. And of course, I will give him all this. And all of them that he gives them, he placed them in a certain distance. So whenever they come towards Esav, this will be a very large amount of gifts for him. By the way, all the Yaakov gives, he gives the sheeps, right? He gives the camels, the goats, the horses, and the donkeys. Questions asked why? And why the quantity? Yaakov altogether gave him 550 cattle. We know that he's placed them in a certain order. The question is why Yaakov was putting the sheep first, for an example. The sheep and the camels second, the goats third, the horses fourth, and the donkeys last, the fifth. So the Zohar Kadosh brings that Yaakov Avinu placed them in the order of their, being pregnant, the amount of pregnancy each one will have. And they will have children as they come towards Esav. They'll have more. And the sheep, they came first and they are pregnant for 5 months. The second were the camel, they're pregnant for 6 months. The third came the goats, and they are pregnant for 9 months. The fourth were the horses, and they are pregnant for 12 months. And then he put the donkey. The donkey resembled the Mashiach ben David. Basically, he says to him, listen, I'm giving you all these gifts. It's because I've been out of the land of Israel, and this is my maaser for you. This is my mincha. This is the gift for you. By the way, this gift is not part of what Yaakov vowed to do. Because, Yaakov, when he left the Temple Mount, Hara Moriah, when he had the dream of the ladder, he says to Hashem, if you clothe me and save me and feed me and bring me back, I'll give you aser ulach. I'll give you 20%. Of course, Yaakov forgot about it. But remember, he said aser lach to Hashem, not to Esav. So this is not part of the vow of Yaakov. And he says to the people that leading, those shepherds that bringing this towards Esav, he says, tell him that there is more coming, and tell him this is a gift, and tell him that I am coming with them at the end. ויצב גם את השני וגם את השלישי את ההולכים אחרי העדרים לאמור. Yaakov says to them, tell them that I am sending this as a gift to him. Achapra panav b'mincha. He says this will be like the forgiveness that I'm going to give to him in order to soften the blow, so to speak, in hope that his brother, when he see all that, maybe he'll change his mind. By the way, when Yaakov heading towards Esav, and Esav sending 400 of his angels, and Yaakov sending 613, Yaakov did the simple math. It says, let's say, God forbid, I lose 400, that will destroy his 400. And I'll remain with 213. 213 in Gematria is El Selichot, is the God of forgiveness. Meaning, even with the angels, I would win because of my mitzvot. We know that when we do mitzvot, David HaMelech said, King David says, Ki malacha vetzavelecha lishmorcha bechol darchecha. Because ki in Hebrew is an acronym, kol yom. Every day, angel saves us. Every day that we have a chance to do mitzvot, we create angels that can save us. Kol yom. Everywhere we walk, everywhere we travel, everywhere we are. I'll tell you a story, a personal story. About 8 years ago, we had a shul in La Jolla, and one of the members that was praying there all the time got married. A very nice gentleman. And he married a lady, and he took his honeymoon. He went to France, to Nice. He went to Cannes, Nice. It was 7 or 6 years ago, I don't remember exactly, but I met him 8 years ago or 9 years ago. And when he was in Nice on his honeymoon, he was walking down the main, street in Nice where all the hotels and everything, right in front of the ocean, the French Riviera. And he was walking with his new wife. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this guy comes to him and speaks to him in Hebrew. He says to him, come with me for a second. I want to talk to you. Hold your wife. Bring your wife with you. The moment this guy looks at him, this gentleman, this guy that came to speak to them in Hebrew, hold his hand and move him aside to an alley. And literally seconds after, that was the terrorist attack when a terrorist came with a big truck and killed 86 people. This person all of a sudden disappeared within a split second. The groom and the bride were just looking. They looked back. There was nobody there. He's really an angel. An angel that came to save them right before the attack. Ki malacha v'tzavelecha lishmorcha bechol darchecha. Hashem sends angel to save you. When we do mitzvot, we're deserving to be saved. On the other hand, God forbid, sins could either kill you or hurt you or punish you. We have to really be careful always and focus more on mitzvot. Continue, Yaakov. That night, as we mentioned, he divides his wives and 4 wives, and of course 2 of them are maidservant. They called here maidservant. They will be called wife only after Leah and Rachel will pass. But now the Torah says that he takes his 11 children. As we know, Yaakov had 12 children. Yaakov had what we call 8 boys. That was the 11 tribes. He doesn't have Binyamin yet. Binyamin is not born yet. And he has Dinah, so he has 12 kids, the daughter Dinah and the 11 boys. What happened here? Why Yaakov doesn't mention her? So we know that Dinah actually was hidden. Yaakov did not want her to be seen by Esav. And he figured, Chaz v'chalila, Esav, I know him. He used to do a lot of bad things. He used to kidnap women, rape them. He used to do all kinds of things. And I not want him to defile my daughter. The Zohar Kadosh says that Hashem was upset with Yaakov for doing that. He said that Yaakov did not trust that perhaps maybe Dinah could change Esav. You know, many, many women, especially a daughter of a righteous man, can turn every wicked person towards Torah. And it's proven to us in the Gemara. You know, Rabbi Yochanan was a very handsome man. He was the head of the Sanhedrin. He had long hair. He was the Fabio of Israel. Very, very beautiful, handsome man, long hair. And he went to swim at the Jordan River. And there was another guy, on the other hand, was the head of the mobster of Israel, so to speak. He was a very, very wicked man named Resh Lakish. Now, Resh Lakish saw Rabbi Yochanan. He thought it was a beautiful woman in the river, and he jumped in to do his thing. Of course, Rabbi Yochanan noticed him, and he waited until he got so close to him, and then he turned. And Resh Lakish started drowning because he saw a man. Rabbi Yochanan held him, saved him. He says, you have such powers for sins. Why don't you turn it towards Torah? And Resh Lakish said to him, you're so handsome. How can you be a rabbi? What is this? He said, I'll tell you what Rabbi Yochanan said to him. I promise you, if you make tshuva, my sister is 100 times more beautiful than I am. I'll make a shidduch for you. You'll marry her if you promise to do tshuva. And that's exactly what happened. He did tshuva. He married the sister of Rabbi Yochanan, and he became such a tzaddik. He was the chavruta of Rabbi Yochanan. At the end, Rabbi Yochanan insulted him accidentally. Resh Lakish came to him, asked him about a knife for shchita, if it's kosher. And jokingly, Rabbi Yochanan says, what are you asking me? You're a murderer, you should know. And the pain that Resh Lakish took from that killed him. It broke his heart. And of course, we know the story that Rabbi Yochanan also died from a broken heart. And he said the famous verse, O chavruta o mituta. It's better to have a good friends in Torah, otherwise you should die. And I accidentally killed my best friend, my chavruta. So we know that Dinah was hidden and Yaakov did not want to show her to Esav. Continue here. That night, Yaakov is fighting with an angel all night. Vayavek Yaakov imo. He goes back, after Yaakov divided his camp, he forgot something. Yaakov Avinu goes to the other side of the river of Yabuk. By the way, this is back then was the border between Israel and Lavan. And the Nachal Yabuk is it's a river that until today, it goes through Syria and it pours into the Jordan River. And this Yaakov, after he passed and he transferred the entire camps into the side of Israel, then he went back. He forgot something. The Gemara says he forgot pachim ktanim. He forgot the small oil jar. This oil, by the way, Yaakov Avinu, that was the same oil that he had with him when he had the dream of the ladder on Temple Mount, when he took the 12 stones and put them under his head, and then it became one stone. Yaakov poured oil on it. This jar of oil is the same jar that will be used later on to anoint all the kelim of the Mikdash, all the vessels of the Mishkan and Bet HaMikdash, and there will be also the same jar that Yehuda Maccabi, the Maccabees, will find in the miracle of Hanukkah. The Zohar says the jar will always filled up. It will always be full. That's exactly the miracle of Hanukkah. This little jar lasted for 8 days. You know, the menorah that had back then was 7 kanim, was 7, but the menorah lasted 8 days. That's why we have 8 lights on Hanukkah. It was above nature. This is what Yaakov forgot, and he went back to get. And getting back there, an angel of Esav named Samael, Satan, fights Yaakov all night, and Yaakov defeats him. By the way, Yaakov is the only one in the history of the world that can defeat an angel. Not just an angel, the angel of death, so to speak, Samael. And Samael says to him, let me go. Morning is coming and I have to go back. Because every morning before the sunrise, the angels do what we call Shevachim La Hashem. They pray to Hashem and bless Hashem and say 515 tefillot, blessings. And this angel said to him, let me go. And Yaakov says, no, only if you bless me, as meaning that make the blessing that Yitzchak, my father, gave me hold. Tevarcheni mean bless me in the past. Of course, Yaakov Avinu would not let him go. And the guy, this angel, Samael, the angel of Esav, says to him, what's your name? As if he doesn't know that's Yaakov. But he says to him, you don't need to worry. What's your name? You Yaakov. Your father blessed you. Hakol kol Yaakov. The voice is the voice of Yaakov. You don't have to worry about anything. Your father knew that you were Yaakov. Your father gave you the blessing because you are the true Bechor, not Esav. And Yaakov says, what's your name? You know, they're fighting all night. Something happened at the end when he could not defeat him. The angel could not defeat Yaakov. He hits him at the sciatic nerve. He kept hitting him on the sciatic nerve. The question is asked, why was he doing that? Why this angel was going after Yaakov's sciatic nerve? So the Zohar brings something amazing. You know, when Yaakov Avinu did the deal with Esav to buy the Bechorah, they did what we call a trust deed, so to speak. There was a certificate they signed, an agreement. And of course, not just an agreement, they had also a swear, a shvuah. You know, Esav had to swear, because that's the only way this agreement would hold. And then Yaakov took this agreement and he actually sewed it into his body. He put it on the left side of the sciatic nerve. The Zohar says Yaakov did that because we're Yetzer Hara in us, the evil inclination, reside on our left sciatic nerve. And Yaakov put this agreement there. And the angel tried to get this agreement, to void and annul this agreement, and he could not do it. And Yaakov, as we know, became stumbling. He was stumble on his left leg. He was now walking right. And the angel could not do it. And he begs him, please let me go now. Yaakov says, no. Yaakov says, what's your name? And the angel will not answer him. He says, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you a little hint of what's to come. Your name will be changed to Israel, from Yaakov to Israel. You know, the word Israel is Yashar El. Yashar El meaning you've been straight with Hashem, you will deserve the land of Israel. What he was saying to him also, tell your children to be straight with Hashem, and Israel will ever be theirs. They will not be exiled. It will always be the land of Israel for the Jewish people. But if the call is called Yaakov, if the voice of Yaakov, then they'll have the right to remain in Israel. By the way, the word Israel in Hebrew, Israel, is also the acronym of all our foremothers and fathers, right? We have Yud, Yaakov and Yitzchak, Shin, Sarah, Resh, Rivka and Rachel, Aleph, Abraham, Lamed, Leah. These are forefathers and mothers. It's the acronym of Israel. And the letters combining all of them is 26, alluding to Hashem, Yud, Kei, Vav, Kei. The angel revealed to him. And Yaakov still asking to him, what's your name? He would not. So Yaakov gave him a name named Pneel. Pneel, the face of God. Now, what Yaakov was doing, essentially says, you know, there is a term, the Gemara says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Lo yireni adam v'chai. A person cannot see me and remain alive. Yaakov was able to see Hashem and remain alive. Very few could do that. Avraham Avinu, Yitzchak and Yaakov, Moshe, and believe it or not, all the people that stood up receiving the Torah in Mount Sinai, they saw Hashem. It says, Vayiru ha'am et Adonai, vayaminu ba'Adonai, Moshe Avdon. And they saw Hashem, and then they believed in Moshe and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because they saw. That's why seeing is believing. You know, when you believe, you don't know 100%. You assume. But when you see something, it's really you're a witness. Then you can really know. Hashem says, know me. Don't just believe in me. Know me. Da lifnei mi ata omed. You have to know. You have to learn. Don't believe. Because when you believe, you're not strong. But when you know, then that is adut. You're a witness. You have yeda. You have what we call ed. Yeda is ed Hashem. Yaakov is now what we says panim el panim, face to face with the angel of God. And the Torah says that he's now stumbling. By the way, this Gid HaNasheh, the sciatic nerve, is already mentioned that once before. The Zohar says, when the snake came to Chava, she said, when Hashem says, what happened, Chava? She said, Ki hanachash hisiani, hishiani. He actually, this is the snake that married me. Yetzer hara, back then, he said that Satan came riding on a snake. The snake could speak. He would tell him what to do and how to convince Chava. And the snake says to Chava, I called Chavia, and you are Chava. We should be together, not Adam. Look, Adam lied to you. He said to you, don't touch the tree. I pushed you. Nothing happened to you. He was able to be with her. This is really the wife of Satan. Hashem made another Chava to Adam Arishon. He said, now this is a woman. Basar mi besari. In essence, Anachash Hesiani, this is the Gid HaNasheh. The Gemara says, whoever eat Gid HaNasheh, whoever eat the sciatic nerve from a cow or any other kosher animal, as if like you ate on Yom Kippur. And you know, it's karet. Let's continue. And of course, we know that Yaakov now, after this, is heading towards Esav, and they meet each other. And Yaakov, as we know, as we mentioned, he divided the camps, and everybody bowed to Esav. By the way, Yaakov went first, like a true leader, unlike the non-Jewish leader that always lead from behind, not to mention countries and states and whatnot. But Yaakov goes ahead. He's the first one forging ahead towards his brother Esau. He doesn't know if he's going to behave like his brother or he's going to behave like Esau. That's why Yaakov says, Hatzileni na miyad achi miyad Esau. Save me from my brother Esau, meaning that sometimes we have brothers that behave like Esau. We know today, both in America and all over the world, we have Jews that vote against Israel. Jews that vote for people that want to destroy Israel. 70% of Jewish Americans, so to speak, voted Democrat, and Democrat want to support Iran to destroy Israel. It's the truth. This is Esau. In essence, this is my brother that behaved like Esau. Same thing in Israel. You have all the left that want to destroy Israel on every level, both religion, Zionism. They want now, for an example, the left in Israel was trying to do something so horrific this week. They wanted to remove every Jewish sign from all the schools of Israel. You cannot have a Chanukiah, you cannot have a shofar, you cannot have anything that has to do with Judaism. This is the people of Israel, so to speak, the left, the Esau people. When Yaakov says that, Hatzileni miyad achi, save me from my brother Esau, he was teaching us a future. Be careful. Sometimes when your brother is not with Hashem, it behaves like Esau. Make no mistake. The Ben Ish Chai also bring another explanation to the word achi. The Ben Ish Chai said that Esau had another son named Achi. And Esau raised this son all his life and trained him to kill Yaakov. So Yaakov says, save me also from the son of Esau, Achi name. His name is Achi. And of course, Yaakov now, he goes and he bows to, by the way, everybody bowed to Esau, except one son that wasn't born yet. Binyamin, the right son, Binyamin, the right son. This is the son that never bowed to anybody. Everybody else bowed. And of course, when Rachel came towards Esau, her son Yosef went ahead of her. In essence, he knew how beautiful his mother was. The Torah says she was Yefat Mar'eh Nefat Torah. By the way, Leah was just as beautiful, but because Leah was crying a lot, Rachel, Esau sees her, but Yosef stands between them. He goes ahead of her, says, be careful. I can't kill you. As we know, Yosef was the only one that's able to destroy Esau. But when Yaakov comes toward Esau, he bows to him 7 times. There's a beautiful teaching by the rabbis of Mei Marom. You know, the rabbis of Mei Marom say something amazing. Yaakov bowed 7 times. What Yaakov was bowing for is really, he was thanking Esau for 7 amazing rabbis that will come from him. 7 giant rabbis that will convert from Edom and be leaders of Israel. Yaakov, the first bow, he was thanking him for Shmaliah and Naphtalion. Shmaliah and Naphtalion were the grandson of Sancheriv. They were the teacher of Hillel and Shammai. Shmaliah and Naphtalion. Then he was thanking him for Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes. Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes was the son of Neron, the Caesar. Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes. That's the second time he bows to him. Again, 3 times already. We have 1, 2, and 3. Shmaya, Naphtalion, Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes. Then he bows to him again. It's for Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva will come. He will be the grandson of Cicero. Cicero that raped Yael. They had a son named Yosef. Yosef converted, and Rabbi Akiva was born. He came from Edom. Giant rabbis. Then he bows to him for another rabbi, Shmuel bar Shilat. He was the grandson of Haman, the Edomite, the Amalekite. Rabbi Shmuel bar Shilat, by the way, was a teacher of all the religious yeshiva boys, children in Bnei Brak. He had a brother also that converted. Then he was the sixth time he was bound was for Onkelos. Onkelos, as we know, it was also came from the house of the Romans. Onkelos was the son of the sister of Adrianus the Caesar, and his father named Colinimus. He was the son from Edom. He, by the way, translated the whole Torah in Aramaic. When you see in the Bible, on the left there is a column. This is Onkelos. That's from the Roman. And the last one he was bound to is to thank Esav for one of the prophets, Obadiah. Obadiah Navi, he was one of the last, as we know, the prophets, by the way, lasted all the way only to the first temple, not to the second. And they were done after the Galut Bavel. There were no more prophets. And as we know, when he bows to him, that's why Yaakov was bound to him so many times, to thank him for those tzaddikim. Of course, the Zohar says that when, and you see that in the Torah, when he came to him, Esav, and he was hugging Yaakov, Vayipol al tzavarav, vayashkehu. You know, it says here, vayishakehu. Actually, the Zohar says that first Esav tried to bite Yaakov to kill him. Just like, you know, Yaakov, as we know, he was a reincarnation of Adam. His mother, Rivka, was reincarnation of Chava. And Cain, by the way, was reincarnation of Esav. Esav, as we know, tried to do what Cain did. Cain bit Hevel and killed him, biting him. Esav tried to do the same thing here, and his teeth broke. They said, the Zohar says that the neck of Yaakov became like a stone, like the Evan Merashotav. You know, when we said that he has the stone underneath his head, the Zohar says that his neck became the stone, the same stone that he put under his head. The neck comes under the head, right? Esav bit it and broke all his teeth. Then he started crying. Vayivku, vayivcho. The Gemara says, don't cry, don't say vayishakehu, say vayinashchehu. That's why there's dots. There is 6 dots above it. 6 times he was trying to kill him. Couldn't. Then he cried. So we know the whole story now. By the way, they meet and they make peace, so to speak. It will be the sign for the future. Will be peace between the people of Edom and the people of Israel in the days of Mashiach. And here, by the way, there is a prophecy of the war of Yom HaKippurim. You know, when Esav says to Yaakov, let's spend time together, our children, and Yaakov says, no. We got to go. We have very young children. And he says to him, Ha'iladim rakim ve'atzon ve'abakar alot alai. He said, God forbid. V'dafekum yom echad ve'metu kol atzon. He says, the Ben Ish Chai says, this is the prophecy of Yom HaKippurim, the war of Yom HaKippurim. They said they will come and hit them one day. That will be in one day, Yom HaKippurim. This is the war of the Yom HaKippurim. The people of Esav, as we know, and the people of Ishmael wanted to destroy Israel. That was on Yom HaKippurim. But Yaakov ensured the safety by leaving Esav. And as it says, Vayom hahu Esav ledarko seira vayashav vayom hahu. He returned to his place in Seirah. ויעקב נשא סוכותה, and Yaakov went to a place and he built a city named Sukkot. This is, by the way, in essence, what we call the first shelter for animals. Yaakov Avinu was very merciful of animals. He built them Sukkot, and from this chesed to put the animals to save them from, he lived there for 18 months. And he saved the animals from the cold and from the heat. And that's why Hashem in the future will give us the holiday of Sukkot. In essence, the clouds of glory will be like the sukkah to protect us from all sides. And he says, after 18 months, Yaakov come, vayavo Yaakov shalem ir Shechem. Yaakov is coming to the city of Nabla Shalem, meaning he's healthy, he's not stumbling anymore, his hip is okay, and he comes full to the city of Shechem. You know, when Avraham Avinu Hashem says to him, Lech Lecha, go, the first place that Avraham Avinu went, he went to the city of Shechem and to Me'arat HaMachpelah, as we know. He went to Hebron and Shechem. Why did he go to Shechem? So the Zohar Kadosh brings that Avraham Avinu had the prophecy. He saw what's going to happen in Shechem. Many problems to the people of Israel happen in Shechem. He saw that Dinah will be raped. He saw that Shimon and Levi will kill 24,000. And he saw that Yosef will be sold from Shechem. So he went to bless the place and to have a good outcome. Me'az yatsa matok. When they get to Shechem, we know that Dinah, the daughter of Leah, the Torah mentions specifically that Dinah, the daughter of Leah, went out to see the women of the land. Basically, she lost her tzniut, she lost her modesty. And it says she's the daughter of Leah. Why? Because Leah did the same thing. When Leah purchased the night to be with Yaakov, the whole story with Rachel and the Dudaim, she came out when Yaakov says, come to me because I bought you. Chutzpah. And immodesty. Dinah does the same thing. She comes out to show her beauty. And we know there was a wicked, disgusting rapist named Shechem, the son of Hamor. He kidnaps her, he raped her, and he tortured her, both sexually and physically. The Torah said that he did it in a way that is the normal way, in the way that it's not the normal way, the way of Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, Yaakov hears about it. Vayecherash, Yaakov was quiet, did not complain. You know, Yaakov Avinu, when a tzaddik like that incur such tragedy, he doesn't ask why. He says, what should I learn from it? And he realized something. He realized that when he came to the land of Israel, he forgot to do maaser, like he promised. As we know, Dinah, Aser Asrenu Lach, 10 and 10. Dinah was get raped, but the Zohar Kadosh says even that was for a good reason. What does it mean? Who is Dinah? The Zohar Kadosh says that Dinah is a reincarnation of the mother of Abraham, named Amtalia bat Karnavo. Amtalia bat Karnavo, the wife of Terach, she actually conceived Abraham when she was in impurity. And the name Nida, impurity, is the letter of Dinah, is the same letters. What was happening here, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to remove this klipa, this bad thing, through Shechem ben Hamor. And from that will come a holy girl named Osnat that would later on marry Yosef. When Yaakov was silent, his children heard of what happened. And of course, two of them, a 13-year-old kids, Shimon and Levi. It says Shimon was 13 and Levi was 13 and 9 months. they now plotted a revenge. We know when the father of Shechem, Hamor, came to Yaakov, said, my son is in love with your daughter. He wants to be with her, and we want to mix. Yaakov, he says, I have Shor and Hamor. You cannot mix an ox and a donkey. You're Hamor. Ox is the people of Israel, the children of Israel. This is Yosef. Is my son the Bechor that I consider. We cannot mix between its kilaim. You're not even allowed to plow with an ox and a donkey. So the children of Yaakov hatched an amazing plot and said to them, listen, if you want to be with us, you have to circumcise. You cannot be with us unless you circumcise. But they knew because of this crazy love of impurity, they will do it. And that's exactly what happened. The whole people of Shechem, this Arab village, were circumcised. The first two to do it was Hamor and Shechem. And then on the third day of the circumcision, which is the worst day, most painful day, that's why the angels came to visit Abraham when he did the circumcision on 99. On the third day, Shimon and Levi, the Torah says, Ish et Charbo. They didn't know of each other. Just went by themselves. And all of a sudden they get there, they see each other. And they revenge the rape of their sister Dinah. And they slaughter 24,000 Arabs. And they said, are you going to defile our sister like this? And we know they said to their father, their father was terrified. Yaakov says, what have you done? Achartem oti ve'isheni beyoshev haaretz baknaani baprizi ve'ani metem mispar. He says, what have you done? We are very little in comparison in number. And they said, they will come and destroy us. And they said to him, Shimon and Levi, Hakezona ya'aseh achotenu. What is our sister is a whore? They treat her like a whore. No such thing. The Zohar Kadosh says that these 24,000 Arab that they killed, there will be the same 24,000 souls of the 24,000 people that would die with Pinchas. As we remember, when the Moabite women came to seduce the people of Israel, 24,000 people of Israel died. After Bilam and Balak could not succeed with their curses. This will be the same 24,000 student of Rabbi Akiva that would die. It will be all the reincarnation to do the tikkun. And we know that Shimon and Levi took Vayikhu et Dinah. By power, they had to take Dinah away. Why? Because Dinah said, I'm ashamed. So Shimon says, I will marry you in order not to show her kharpa. By the way, this is also the prophecy of the 6-day war, when the nation will come against Israel, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that they did not chase them, He said that these people of Shechem and all the others did not chase Yaakov when he went to Bethel. They were able to defeat everybody. So in essence, all the children of Yaakov had twin sisters they married. It says that when Yaakov went down to Egypt, Vayered Yaakov Mitzrayma, it says, Kol Yotzei Yerech Yaakov, Banav uBnotav, the children, both sons and daughters. Until Matan Torah, you could marry your sister. Until the Torah was given, the prohibition to marry was removed. And we know that now Yaakov is going to a place that he was there before, Har Moriah, to sacrifice. He goes back, Temple Mount, and he does a sacrifice. He says, why? Because Hashem answered my prayers. And we know here the Torah mentioned Vatama Dvorah me'aneket Rivka. It says that the servant of Rivka died. It doesn't mention that Rivka died, but it mentions that her maidservant died. The Gemara says that Rivka was surrounded by a wicked son, Esav, and her husband, Yitzchak, was blind. She was ashamed to die and to be recorded in the Torah, so she asked not to be written like that. And they said that actually the student of her husband, Yitzchak, buried her in Me'arat HaMachpelah. And as we know, the second thing that about to happen now is Rachel is about to give birth to Binyamin. She gives birth to Binyamin. The Zohar says, an angel says to Rachel, one of you has to die. Remember, Yaakov promised to do a neder. He did a neder, a vow to give 20%, 10 and 10, maaser and maaser. And he did not do. And as a result of that, Dinah gets raped and Rachel dies. When you do a vow, God forbid, it says, Chaz v'chalila, if you don't make the vow, somebody could die. That's why Yaakov says, Meta alai Rachel, because of me Rachel died. And as we know, before Rachel dies, she named Binyamin Ben Oni, the son of my sorrow. But of course, Yaakov will change it to Binyamin. Binyamin was the only tzabar. He was the only tzabari, the only son that was born in Israel. Everybody else was born with Lavan house. ותמת רחל ותיקבר בדרך אפרתה היא בית לחם. You know, Yaakov buries Rachel right in Bethlehem. By the way, until today, you know, Hashem promised Rachel always cry for her sons. And Hashem says, don't cry, you will be witnessing the redemption and the Geula and the bringing back of all the Jewish people from all over the world, and they will come and will pass through Beit Lechem. V'shavu banim ligvulam. The children will come back to their land. You know, this place where Rachel is buried, originally Yaakov put a small matzeva, Yaakov put a stone head, and it's until there, today it's here. But later on will come a very nice, rich tzaddik from England named Moshe Montefiore. Moshe Montefiore, basically, he actually built the entire complex of Rachel Imenu, because he saw what the Arabs, back then there was no Arab, and slowly start building around it, start stealing land of the people of Israel. And he actually was the first one to build 7 neighborhoods outside of the walls of Jerusalem. Sir Moshe Montefiore. He was a very rich nobleman from England, beautiful Jewish soul that actually did a lot of things for Israel. And he also, the windmill in Rechavia in Yerushalayim, that's his. And he built 7 neighborhoods outside, and of course, the grave of Rachel. So we know the Torah brings now the lineage, the 12 children of Leah and Yaakov. The Torah lists them, but it also lists the children of Edom, the 12 of them. And by the way, here is the prophecy of Obama in the Torah. The Torah says that Esav was a Christian and he married a woman from Ishmael, from, the Arabs. מבנות כנען, את עדה בת אלון החיתי ואת ההוליבמה. Dehainu, Obama. We see here that, today, the prophecy of Daniel was explaining the dream of Nebuchadnezzar that was basically, it says there will be 10 kings in the future that would be married between Christians and Islam. And from them, we know today. We have Machshmo Shem Zichro Arafat, Saddam Hussein, his father, Hussein Jordan, his father, and Obama. His mother's Christian, his father Ishmaelite. There's a lot of those leaders that we know that married Christians and Ishmaelite. And we know the Torah mentioned here Amalek at the end. As we know, Eliphaz was his father. Eliphaz married his sister Timnah, had 6 children, and Amalek was one of them. And the Zohar says that if you read this list of Esav, you'll see what's happening to us today. So, Be'ezat Hashem, I want to thank all of you for being online, and thank you for watching and sharing the class. I'm Rabbi Dahan here of Kol Ahavat Israel on behalf of Partners in Torah. Thank you so much. The class will be posted both on our website and on our YouTube and Facebook. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of the week. Join us tomorrow and the day after. Thank you so much.